Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the International Solidarity Pod, which is a podcast that aims to explore current affairs and history relating to imperialism, the global south, gender, political economy, and people to people ties. I'm your host, Ashwin. In this episode, I talked to Atul Chandra. Atul is a researcher at the Tricontinental Institute for Social Research and serves on its communications team. We talk about the fact that by the end of this year, Kerala is set to be the first Indian state that has eradicated extreme poverty. Atul has written an article on this published by People's Dispatch titled Communist-Led Kerala is Eradicating Extreme Poverty, which I will leave linked in the description below. Throughout the conversation, we cover how Kerala's socialist-oriented model of development over the past 7 decades has laid the groundwork for this to take place, how exactly this program was conducted, how it compares to China's targeted poverty alleviation strategy, and how it can inspire the rest of the global south. I should say, if you haven't already yet, check out our previous conversation with Ting Chak, where she details how the poverty alleviation campaign in China took place. I'll also leave that linked below. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and like this video. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please subscribe as well, and please leave a review to get this podcast to new audiences. Of course, you can and please should share this podcast with others in your life. Word of mouth makes a huge difference. And lastly, if you're able to contribute small amounts of money or would like to be a monthly donor, you can do that on Patreon. I've also left that linked in the description, in addition to, where you can find our Instagram and Substack. All right, here's my conversation with Atul. Hi, Atul. Welcome to the International Solidarity Podcast, and again, thank you for taking the time to have this conversation. We're basing this conversation on your article in People's Dispatch, titled "Communist-Led Kerala is Eradicating Extreme Poverty." So that's essentially what's going to shape our discussion today. But before we come directly to the poverty eradication campaign, your article situates Kerala's success in a longer legacy of, communist or left struggles and reforms. That includes land redistribution, decentralization, decentralized government, or sorry, governance, public health and education, women's empowerment through the Kudumbashree program. Maybe before we get into the poverty eradication program specifically, can you set up the background of Kerala's political economy and left history first? It's a big history, but just maybe boil it down to the basics for us, in order for us to be able to understand the context of this poverty eradication program.
Uh, sure. First of all, thank you so much, Ashwin, for having me. As you said, that I work with the Tricontinental Research Institute. Institute for Social Research. You know that we have different offices, and all our work is basically is based on the global South and the different movements, and very clearly, not very closely, we watch the events happening in and around, and how left and progressive governments actually shape up, they deal with these situations, etc. So, through your channel, first of all, I would request everyone who is listening to us to sort of please go subscribe to our newsletters, our dossiers, send us suggestions, send us feedback. Very important. On the work which we are doing. So yeah, having said that, to come back to your question, Ashwin, see, Kerala's achievements, I would say, don't spring from technocratic tinkering. I would say they are the outcome of over a century of mass struggle, and left governance that converted popular energies into durable institutions. That's what I would say. See, for example, you have to go a little bit, into the history. Let's talk about the social terrain. Long before independence, what was happened? Kerala's anti-caste mobilizations were reshaping everyday life. For example, the Vaikom Satyagraha of 1924-25, I think. It was a multi-caste civil rights campaign for access to temple roads in Travancore, right? Then concrete, there was, I mean, in that movement, you could see the concrete class caste demand, uh, which became a template for, I would say, equality and freedom struggles later. Having said that, you also remember, I mean, one instance which I gave you from the from history. Then you have to look at the bitter experience which happened during the colonial extraction, right? And the rigid agrarian order which was prevalent then. The social taxes of Travancore, again, remember the mulakam, which is commonly translated into breast tax, uh, were widely cited as symbols of caste oppression. uh, I mean, these were very interestingly, what would you say? I mean, oppressive societies, right? I mean, which I would say shaped, or I mean, modern day political system or parties inherited. It's like it was like a living memory of caste class subordination, and that these movements sought to abolish, and not merely like do a lip service to it, right? One of the milieu arose, I mean, I think, yeah, one of the very important milieu arose during the anti-colonial and anti-landlord current. Also remember, I mean, of course, left and progressive forces played a very important role during the freedom struggle when the British colonials were here. After that, after India, and the left and progressive parties and cadres played an important role. What happened just after independence? Kerala in 1957 saw the first elected world's, I would say, first communist government through the ballot, right? Which was led by at that time the chief minister and comrade EMS Nambudripad. I mean, at that time, of course, there was not CPM, it was CPI. And when he came into government, what did the first left ministry started doing? The ministry began legislating school reforms, it started talking about land reforms and started doing it, and the administrative overhaul, right? It became so threatening to the entrenched interest of that time, and especially the union government. Imagine the irony. Who was there in the union government then? It was Jawaharlal Nehru, right? I mean, leading the country, and Indian National Congress was there. I mean, the Congress party was at the center, was in the government. They dismissed the state government under Article 356 in 1959. And I mean, I mean, for your audiences, if they don't understand, there are three sort of emergencies in India. Of course, there are two. I mean, one of them, Article 352, when there is external war, then the government actually can be abolished, and there is some sort of a unilateral government which comes into, or administrative system which comes into being. Then there is Article 356, which is widely used in India, especially by the union government, to sort of overthrow, or suspend, or I mean, to remove the opposition parties which forms government in the provincial uh, regions or in the provinces. So Kerala, I mean, of course, union government and majority of the India was at that time led by the Congress party. Of course, Prime Minister Nehru was then the leader of the country, and Kerala led by CPI at that time, and was, so, I mean, dismissed under Article 356, right? Then, so I mean, that was just a little bit of history which I gave you, but then comes the important question. For example, you also need to look. I mean, I already gave you the legislation of the school thing which was happening, then overhaul of administrative and land reform. The land question was very pivotal. That's important. Kerala's Land Reforms Act, through successive amendment, came into force on, I think, 1st 1970. I don't exactly remember the date. I think it was January 1970. Yeah. And what did it do? It abolished the most tenancy and imposed ceilings, right? Uh, I mean, of course, there were, I would say, limitations, and we can talk about it later. But these were, I mean, but the when the left came into being, they started talking about it, right? Even with, I mean, remember, these land reforms, they broke the old tenancy order. They expanded the social citizenship and underwrote later gains in schooling, public health, and local democracy. The second constitutional pillar is the radical decentralization I would talk about. So the People's Plan campaign, right, which is also now popularly known as local self-government institutions, uh, which basically who all are there? It's panchayats and municipalities, right? With planning mandated through gram sabhas and specific, I would say, subject task force basically. So this wasn't token participation, okay? It was a budgetary federalism from below, and of course embedding people's planning as the operating system of service delivery and project execution. So if you
Atul,
ask
can
me,
you, sorry to interrupt you. Can you just quickly, for audiences that might not be from Indian background, can you just quickly define panchayat and gram sabhas?
yes. So then there are three tiers of administrative services. Of course, you see the union government, then there are provincial governments, and within the provincial, I mean, within these provincial or the states, as we call the state of Kerala, many countries use provinces. Then there is a system of to bring the administration to reach the fine, I mean, to the last citizen of the country is gram panchayats. In urban cities, it's called municipalities. So when we talk about gram panchayats, it basically deals with the villages. And I mean, then there are gram panchayats, there are gram savas, and things like that. So these are basically I would say, like the lowest step or the first step, ideally, in the administrative setup. That's what I would say. So this is what happened, and then remember, I mean, so when I say, many people might ask you, Ashwin, that what is the DNA? Which it's the functions, okay, funds and functionaries, which forms the structures of administrative system in Kerala, and the implementation which happens through it, from housing to health. The third very important thing, of course, I know that you're going to go into that, or you might ask me because I've written that in the article, is the Kudumshri. Okay, I mean, okay, we'll talk more about it, but just to say, it was also a very important aspect of the women's collective power, which was built into this project of Kodam Shri, which was launched in 1997 and organized into a three-tier federation: neighborhood groups, area development societies, and community development societies. And all of these were linked to the local self-government institutions, and it moved beyond thrift and credit to co-governance, helping draft local plans, run micro enterprises, deliver livelihood programs, and extend welfare to the last household. So this is, I would say, this is very important, very crucial to Kerala's, I mean, what we see in today's campaign, this Kerala's anti-poverty capacity or campaign, which we see, has happened because of all these historical facts, the steps which they took, and coming to this, that's why they have been able to talk about these things. And these are very important, by the way. It's you also look at the, I mean, all the indicators, right, of be it the SDG index, be it the countries, the Niti Aayog's multidimensional poverty index. I mean, recently, I mean, I'll give you a week or 10 days old news. The infant mortality rate. Many of the global north countries will be ashamed. It has, I mean, when I say this, of course, there, I mean, there is 5 per thousand live births. I mean, just imagine. So I am saying these are important aspects, and there has been a history. It's not something which has suddenly come up. It's not like that. So it's very important to understand that Kerala's political economy is a movement made, an institution anchored, I would say. Anti-caste struggles opened public spaces, and of course, left saw early. I mean, took early strides in the state, and of course came up with different plans and things like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Atul. Yeah, that's you did a great job of setting it up. Let's now come to the actual poverty eradication program. I mean, the government of Kerala officially calls this the eradication sorry, what is it? Let me see here. The Extreme Poverty Eradication Program, EPEP.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, let's talk about this. So in the article, you mentioned that, the government is focusing on four indicators for this program, access to food, income, shelter, and healthcare. You also, both in the article and just now, you mentioned that the decentralized local self-government, plays a big role in this program. So, now let's go into it and give us the basic elements of how this program is shaped.
Okay. See, I mean, Ashwin, I will before I go some into more detail, I will really like to I mean highlight one important thing which I understand. The job of eradicating, I mean, to talk about or to eradicate the extreme poverty from the state of Kerala, it was not, I would say, it wouldn't have, or the government doesn't envision as to run as one more welfare scheme, honestly. But their whole point is to find every remaining extremely poor family and close their specific deprivations, household by household. That's important to understand. What do we see in all the countries or even in different states where I think many people have been talking about comparisons, right? So that's, I think, is a one needs to understand that you don't have to announce welfare schemes after welfare schemes. You just have to work on what you already have and try to implement that in an honest way, right? So now, having said that, what Kerala already, as I've already told you, it is the, like, even the union government identifies and recognizes this fact that it has the lowest multi-dimensional poverty, which means the remaining deprivation is thinly spread and administratively hard to see, right? Because if it's very less, it's very hard in different districts and among such a large population. So EPP starts with active detection. That's the first thing, not passive application, but door-to-door surveys led by ward level teams under which are these teams? These are led by the ward level teams, which are elected under elected local governments, panchayats and municipalities, which we were talking about. Then cross checking against ration, pensions, housing, health, and education data sets. Families can also be flagged by, remember, Kudumshri neighborhood groups, Asha, Anganwadi workers, school teachers, and frontline revenue health staff. The aim is not to like net those outside. I mean, the aim is not to net those outside or people who already miss out on the existing safety nets, right? So the four indicators, which was very important for the government to look at this at this these at this important dimensions, was food, uh, and which was also, I would say, were like non-negotiable, which is the minimal which the state can actually have to identify. So one is, of course, food, very important. The state was saying that, is there any reliable access to nutritious food? It need not be that they are just on a ration card or on a paper, right? This includes correcting documentation gaps, doorstep delivery where mobility is an issue, and linking to community kitchens or hot meal programs during shocks. right? That's food is one. Two is income, a pathway to stable earnings. So now there are again there are different uh, I would say income schemes through in especially in the rural areas in different parts of like in all the provinces or the states in India, but also in Kerala. So from Manrega, from days to wage placement to micro enterprises. Remember the Kudumshri. So I'm not going to mention Kudumshri, but you will understand that Kudumshri was also playing very important role to okay. So then there was the government was trying to set a tone where one of cash transfer is not something which they were looking for, but they were looking for where there is a predictable income flow for the income for the family. Because one time cash transfer, you will see a lot of that happening in India, but that doesn't help. It doesn't help. So there needs to be a predictable income flow. The third was shelter. Again, any dignified society in political system, a shelter is very important. And in countries like us, we do see that people don't have shelter. They still live on roads. They still, are in a very bad shape. And then there are a lot of problems too. So movements for I would say for dignified disaster-free housing, largely through Life Mission. That's a mission in Kerala through which they were trying to provide shelter, including completion support. For example, the last moment of materials, contractors not doing their work and stuff. So these were the things. And the fourth was the healthcare. So the guarantee of continuity of care was very important. So registration of the with the nearest family health center, insurance or financial cover, medication. So things like disability aids. So these were important. So how then what did the government or the LSG do, local self government initiative do? So after their assessment, the ward team drafted a household plan, okay, a short practical checklist that sequences which deprivation to remove first, which department pays, who is responsible, and by when. So because Kerala developed planning and funds in 1990s, remember when we were talking about the self-help governments coming in, and they got financial power. A lot of funds from in the state was transferred to them to take care. So the local body can actually relocate small budgets, okay, convene multiple line departments and issue work orders quickly. So this is the crucial difference from top down schemes elsewhere which we see, right? So now of course you will ask, what were the main engines who did this work? Of course, these were the local self-government institutions, which I've already mentioned. They were like the chair basically, because this whole scheme comes under them. Even if you in my article I have already mentioned. Then there are ward level committees, then there are Kodamchi federations, and then there are frontline health workers, right? Okay. What else? Mm, what else
I
did you
mean,
ask?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is good. Next thing I wanted to come to, and I think you can start going into this, is the Kudumishree program and, what role that has had, because that is interesting. This is, an organized, a program that has organized women for, decades now. And once you
Yeah.
have that infrastructure in place, and like these other, pieces of infrastructure that you're talking about, the decentralization, local self-governments, then that is really able to, you know, come and shape a program like this. It's with having that in place in the first place that a program like this is even possible. So maybe just, particularly on the Kudumashri program, how has this been set up? And, maybe you don't have to go into the history too much, but just what is the essence of this program? And how did it, what role is it playing now in the poverty eradication program?
Okay. See, Kudumshri is not a beneficiary group in that sense. We have to start from a point of view where it's a women's mass organization, woven into state's delivery system. That's, I think, is very important to understand, and that's why this campaign moves. It has a federated network, right? And which can find every last household, plan what is a plan for them in terms of if there are things missing, they can plan with local governments and deliver livelihoods, food, care, and documents at their doorstep. So imagine when you have a system like this, which is Kudumshri, a women-led project, which becomes very important. So I would say, what was their main task? Their main task was to finding the invisible poor. That was the last mile identification. Because Kerala's, I mean, residual depreciation is thinly spread, right? It's already reported in multiple, I would say, government reports, right? The first challenge is to locate extremely poor families who sit outside the safety nets. So, Kudumshi neighborhood groups map their wards, surfaces, they uh, get this information in weekly circles and then take them to the elected local bodies, right? This this is important. That was, I think, very important in terms of identification. Then came the question of what should be the plan? How do we deal with these deprivation? So co-designing household micro plans. Once a family is flagged, so then Kudumshi federations, what they did, they sat with the ward committees to draw a household micro plan across these for non-negotiables. Remember, food, income, shelter, and healthcare. Right. So that sequencing was very important. So then they planned, and they even planned which one is to be removed first. What so imagine the sort of planning. I mean, which impact it I mean, of course, we all know that many a times just removing all four is not possible. Sometimes you don't even need all the four things. So what happens sometimes? So even like what issues comes first? What is the most important issue which we need to tackle first? So these sort of and then co-designing, for example, with regard to that. So this was done. Then remember, this also happens because 35 to 40% of the plan funds goes to the local bodies, okay, during the People's Plan campaign. So these the Kudumshri women's federations are plugged into this budgeted planning process. Then come the third point, which is of delivering livelihoods and not just, remember, not just entitlements. That's very important. Uh, so Kudumshri is also the state's largest livelihood platform for women. It can move household from zero or volatile earnings to predictable income via quick levers, of course. Manrega, which I talked about. There are, for example, micro enterprises, food processing, for example, retail, care work, livestock. Okay. Uh, as of 2025, the latest data which I saw, uh, government figures note 3 point, wait a second, I'll just 3.23 lakh women engaged across 1.63 lakh micro enterprises. So the scale of EPEP taps when an enrolled family needs an income route, right? Credit linkage or market access. Then the comes the fourth point, which is food security and shock response. Kitchens, procurement, PDS fixes. PDS is public distribution system. So I mean, if someone is not getting it, so they need to fix that. So when food is the binding constraint, Kodamshri doesn't stop at paperwork. That okay, this is done, you take it. No, through community kitchens, especially remember their very important role during COVID. And now, so for example, they ensure cooked meals, ration delivery, rapid troubleshooting for documentation gaps, executed in convergence with, of course, the local self government departments. Then there are other points like health as anti poverty, embedding primary care at doorstep. So Kudamshri workers coordinate closely with ASHA workers and family health centers. They help register families, accompany referrals, and also, like, for example, for disability aids. Remember, I talked to you about distributing disability kits. So, for example, identifying them, going to them, to every family. And in the current scenario, for example, Kerala is literally taking medical services to home. to extremely poor households, uh, with different tests, care coordinators, transport, and monthly follow-ups, things like that. Then came a very important aspect of Kutumshri volunteers and workers was with regard to paperwork, uh, and banking and the friction of the state. See, many a times extreme poverty, of course, is because of the income, because there is no income and you are being pushed and pushed to take loans and stuff. And I mean, not even loans, by the way. I mean to it pushes you to into extreme poverty, right? So because I mean, extreme poverty often persists sometimes because of, I would say, bureaucratic, quite bureaucratic administrative systems too. So sometimes missing, let's say, your name is written wrong, right? Your income certificate is not correct. Your caste is not being put properly. So these issues, I mean, we all see in India, man. We have Aadhaar cards. We keep on having so many issues. Voter ID card, you already see so many, this crisis which is happening right now in India, vote chori, so many mistakes in voter ID card. So imagine these sort of issues which come up, and then there is a friction, right? So Kudumshri volunteers and workers were playing that role of correcting those things too. So, for example, if there is stalled pensions, which a senior citizen should get, but because of paperwork, they were not getting, or KYC were lapsed, or there was no bank access. So they played that role. Okay. So Kudumshri federations, I think they specialize, or not, I think they specialize in document recovery and financial inclusion. They escort people through banks and offices, assemble files for them, social security, pensions, and stuff. So that was other aspect. Then there are, of course, monitoring, social audit, and there are so many things. Uh, these are, I think, are were the main thing which they do at the moment and is very important. Yeah, yeah,
Great. Thank you for that, Atul. Yeah, I think maybe just quickly I'll mention that, you mentioned Asha workers, Anganwadi workers. Those are respectively, for those who don't have the background, that's the rural healthcare workers and the rural childcare
yeah.
workers, and they have, clearly play some role within this broader infrastructure in facilitating, this program to take place. So, I wanted to come to this is an interesting question because well, I guess we'll just get into it. But to what extent, because this is an important program, right? India, I mean, Kerala is set to be the first Indian state to have officially, eliminated extreme poverty. This is also, and we'll come to China in a bit, but China has also set this example on the world stage, lifting 800 plus million people out of extreme poverty in 2021. In fact, if you look at the statistics from the 1990s until the present, over 70% of the world's extreme poverty alleviation is because China has lifted that many people out of extreme poverty. So all
Exactly.
of this is to say that, having being able to eliminate extreme poverty within your population is a really big deal. Um, in the context of the global south, especially remembering that, poverty and extreme poverty is not some eternal, uh, um, situation that is endemic to the global south, right? A lot of this was created, especially in South Asia, due to colonialism, right? These extreme forms of poverty were created by deindustrialization that came with colonialism, shifting, um, basically labor surplus in the rural areas, especially, and of course we know the story of colonialism. So within this long history of the context of the subcontinent, and you can think of other parts of the global south where colonialism, over centuries was created. Sorry, poverty over centuries was created through colonialism, and persisted, even post-independence in many parts of the global south, and now in cases like Kerala and in China are finally being tackled and dealt with, which is historic in many ways. So I set that up in that way because, this is happening in Kerala, in one state in India. My question is, to what extent is the Kerala model replicable in other Indian states who have already, I mean, Kerala is already, a state with um, the least amount of extreme poverty, and that's why the government is this phase of the program is the targeted approach, identifying the 64 plus thousand families and having individual plans. You only get to that point, and same with China. They're also doing a targeted program. You only get to that point if your development model from decades leading up to now has gradually been lifting people out of poverty. But this is not the case
Absolutely.
in the rest of India, right? In other Indian states.
Right.
So
Right.
to what extent is this model replicable? Would a significant amount of organizational infrastructure have to be advanced in the first place in these other states, social movements in the other states? Because in Kerala, the basis of this, as you were saying, is a long history of social movements that make this possible. So, yeah, again, I pose the question, to what extent is this replicable in other parts of India?
Man, Ashwin, you're making going to make me jealous. Okay, I come from Bihar. So imagine, I mean, what my state is sitting at the bottom, and Kerala, I mean, the article which I wrote about a state where from that's I'm not from that state, and that state is on the top. Having said that, I mean, it's very interesting. Okay, I mean, see, the Kerala model is replicable. It's not as if the Kerala model, the China model is replicable. We all know that. It's like, for example, it's like showing the way, like showing they are like the guide. Okay. Honestly, I'm just saying, and within the system, by the way, I'm not talking about where people start talking about, let's say, a communist or a bloody classless and casteless whatever society. No, we have still not reached that point, and I don't want to go even there. But then there are examples, there are models which are showing you how to deal with poverty, and that is a very important. I mean, there are so much of funds which flow from global north to global south to different countries through NGOs, through this federation, that federation, in the name of poverty. But we never see poverty being eradicated. Let's face it. Okay, it's not about left, right, whatever liberal, non-liberal, Marxist, revolutionary. No, it's about that. So when it comes to that, then there are models. And which are these two models? Again, now people will call me, oh, he's from left, he reads and follows them. So he told, no. I mean, give me one model from any other country, any other state in India, which is sort of dealing like that. None. Sorry to say this, none. That's why I started with giving you this example from my state. So when I talk, when I tell you this, of course, these models are not as if they are. I mean, it cannot be replicated, or they cannot be even improved. For I mean, okay, people might feel, oh, why are you asking me to copy? No, improve it, man. Improve. You make it better so that Kerala and China follows you. But you're not going to do it. I know. So, so having said that, why, see what will be the common, sorry, not common, will be the most important core ingredients to do it. It will be the state's willingness to decentralize real power and to give the budgetary allocations to these institutions, to federate women's organizations into governance, and run poverty eradication as a household level time bound campaign rather than a bundle of bloody whatever. Sorry, I should not be saying this again and again. So it's a podcast, than a bundle of parallel schemes. Sorry, where those preconditions are met. You can move fast, okay? Where they aren't, you'll get incremental welfare, useful, and eventually which will lead to eradication. So this is very very important in my opinion. When I talk like this, many people don't understand. So that is why I think it's very important to talk like this. It's something which is it can be very well replicable in method and architecture, right? It's very easy. I mean, you do the same thing. I mean, there is no, it's not as if I mean, out of box idea or context. It needs the real political willingness and the sincerity which is needed to do it, right? Till the time you don't have the main two foundations, which is organizational infrastructure and policy coherence, these efforts are will collapse, man. It's not going to work. It's going to back into that top down targeting. CMO, the chief minister's office issue, the state assembly passes it, and then there is nothing. So what are the non-negotiables? That's very important. Working local democracy. How many institutions do we actually see that the local democracy is flourishing? No. I mean, we all know, I mean, how much the amount of money which is put in, even to win local elections, gram panchayats, blocks, I mean, ward members. We know what happens. Gram sabhas that actually meet and decide. Okay, ward committees which can do case management, elected panchayats and municipalities with the authority to convene these departments. These are important aspects. Money. I mean, of course, the financial power is important. The budget allocation is important. The predictable assure. I mean, in many provinces in India, I should not be that harsh. I know. I mean, in a lot of I would say people, especially who are working on social policy, even with governmental sectors with very clear intentions. I mean, they have restrictions and limitations because they have to run to the state secretariat for money every time for one local, I mean, welfare scheme, and the state has to run to the union government. So that's like, I mean, one runs after another. The same thing. So the predictable, assured share of plan funds in local bodies, and not one of grants. That is important to solve these bottlenecks without begging the state secretary, as I told you. Then one should really look at the role of the women or federations. For example, Kudumshri in Kerala. I think that's very important to sort of get them into that with budget lines, linkages, and roles in planning and delivery. And then there, which is very important every time, every elections we keep on hearing, is primary health at the front line. So family health centers are very important. Their enrollment is very important. Refer and follow up is very important. We need to give more power and take care of our Asha and Anganwadi workers who really work on the ward level case tracking, integrate them into these, I would say, policies. So that's very important. Then comes the what I said is policy coherence, right? How to make many schemes like many schemes act like this one program. So Kerala's edge, I would say, is it mesh because land reform, then it goes to mass literacy and health, then it goes to deep decentralization, then it goes to women's federation. So that history lets today's campaign align. For example, housing, food PDS, Manrega livelihood, primary care into household micro plan, right? So these four deprivations of food, income, shelter, healthcare with named responsibilities and dates are important. And because you have that policy coherence, you will be able to, I mean, give task to certain I mean institutions which is already there, right? Then comes the, I would say, is the what should I say, man? I mean, it's very easy to replicate. It's not hard. There are so many intellectuals and policy experts who might be studying, who not might be, who I'm pretty sure. I mean, imagine the Niti Aayog. That Niti Aayog is not, I mean, flooded with people from Kerala that they will go and keep on writing very good reports about Kerala. It has people from everywhere. It has economists. It has people working on the ground. It has IS officers, administrators. So they all have. I mean, if that reports of a union government of India says that Kerala has the minimal, I mean, it's the top state in the country which has the least percentage of poor people, that shows something, right? That shows that it has a history, it has different schemes, it has worked on those schemes, it has targeted pilots, it had a plan to achieve certain success, it had a plan with standards, what should be the standard of living, and accordingly they have behaved, or I would say they have acted. So this is what I would say. See, pitfalls again. Token decentralization doesn't work. Gram Sabhas without fund. Okay. Local self government, that without allocation, if they can't allocate, it's not going to work. Because funds are important, budget is important, one time grants is not needed. You have to give them grants, annual grants, which they can take and work accordingly. Then there is, of course, fragmented delivery. I mean, departments tracking their own beneficiaries with no household level view. If someone can't go and track, which I mean, you can, so I mean, they can't track, that means you can't even identify. So then there is another question of corruption coming in. So I don't want to get into that. But so you, I mean, just imagine there are so many things which, so you can't even deliver. So things like that. Yeah, I mean, so that's where I think I would stop on that front. I think again, as I said, it's very easy to replicate. It's not at all hard. It just needs the literally, I would say, the political willingness, and the way you want to do it. You want to sort of look at these questions. Uh, Coming to your question, I would say, with regard to the uh, China thing is very important, right? It's how should I say?
Can I
See, I
ask
mean,
you, Atul,
yeah,
sorry, can I ask you before we go to China? Because I take your point that many elements of this are replicable across, other Indian states, technically. But then, and you pointed out about, political will. Um,
yeah.
my question is, does the political will appear in other states without social movements though? It's like don't do what are your thoughts on this briefly about do this, don't the social movements have to get to a similar level of similar level of organization and political thrust in order to create this political will? Is there a chance that this political will is able to be taken by existing actors at the state level in other states just because they're interested in their own political survival? You know what I mean? And maybe briefly on this so that we can later come to China and all this.
No, I think you're right. I mean, see, you are absolutely correct. I mean, the political will, the policy coherence, everything is only going to work if you have a very strong democratic uh, sentiment, understanding, and accountability of the people whom you have elected, and when they come back, the accountability. Uh, so that's very important. It's also so in many of the states, it's also true about, for example, uh, I mean, education and other things are also important. But having said all of these, I'll keep it aside. Many a times, a lot of things happen. For example, the question of caste. I mean, for example, in my state, I really think in 1990s, uh, politicians or movements and elected leaders like Lalu Prasad Yadav, Nitish Kumar, they did play a very important role in with regard to social justice. Okay, and it's very important to sort of recognize that fact. But in my opinion, they lacked the economical plan, or the plan with economy, how to sort of see, sometimes giving recognition, giving legislating some law to help them with regard to discrimination which happens on the basis of social practice is important, but that doesn't give you enough teeth and power till the time you give them economical, I mean, the how should I, financial power. Okay, that aspect of economy is very important, and that is where I think these movements lack. It's not to deny the role which they have played. For example, in my state, in many states, I know in different northern belt, even in the central India, in Maharashtra, all of them have played very important role. But these states, they sort of they stopped, I would say, dealing only at the level of, let's say, giving a poor the social and the political right, but not actually the financial power. For example, I'll give you one example. Uh, Land reform was talked about a lot I'm coming to from my own state. Uh, I mean, we know in Bihar there is a lot of caste oppression still happens. We all know that. How much of a land reform, even despite seeing parties which came into power on the name of social justice, delivering social justice, how many of these, I mean, for since 1990s, by the way, it's 35 years. In in the last 35 years, how many of these political parties actually talked about land reform? None. Sorry to say this. It might sound controversial to a lot of people. But how many? None. I mean, did I mean the champions, and that's why I'm saying I respect them for the role they played. But we also need to be very critical of the limitations they had. The limitations, they were unable to sort of realign the economy and the economics of the state. Sorry, I mean. There was no land reforms. Of course, then there are other issues like industry not coming in and all, Jharkhand getting, I mean, becoming another state. That's all different matter. But even then, I'm saying, if you miss that, if you can't sort of allocate budgets to local self-help governments, if you can't allocate things, so these are the important things. And then there are, I mean, there was a patronage, of course, on the basis of caste, on the basis of religion, even on the basis of gender. So things like that. So that, I mean, if that happens, you know, and the society is not going to take the next step in order to develop itself. So that's where I would stop. I mean, I don't know if I answered your question correctly, or I mean, I was able to give you any insight on that or not. But this is what I feel. I mean, I mean, there has been many studies done, many researchers done. I think it's important to look at that, I would say, from that aspect. What is the financial power which these deprived classes and communities in the northern belts got? No, I don't think so. They got a lot. I mean, just giving them SC ST, I mean, quota and representation doesn't help. I mean, that's one way. But what I mean, are you telling me that the caste operation doesn't happen? It happens. So I mean, that is the I mean, who are still the, I mean, majority of the poor in the country? It's from the lower caste, in the lower classes. So I mean, I'm just saying, this is an important, till the time we have a economic agenda to our social and political agenda, till the time we actually intertwine it, it's not going to work. I mean, you can give certain social and political rights, but I mean, is it sufficient enough to take them out of poverty? Sorry, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, just giving them one time grant, opening a school, of course, all of these things are very important. No one is denying that. But I mean, giving them scholarship, of course, giving them voice, of course, it's important. No one can deny it. But in that sense, the economic agenda is very important. And I think that's where, and this is what is the difference we see from the left parties in Kerala and I would say, I consider them, forget about what they do right now, Nitish Kumar going with BJP and the coalition arithmetic. I don't want to go into that, but I would still consider them to be, they have played certain progressive role in their times in the society. That's a fact. No one can deny that. So, but were they able to sort of have a economic agenda to sort of take the state out to help the poor to come out of that? I don't think that was there. Yeah. So, yeah. So I leave that to you. I don't know if I was able to answer this question or not, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's helpful for sure. Um, Okay, maybe let's come to China now. And so in your article, you're noting that, there are overlaps and parallels between Kerala's poverty eradication program and that of China's. So what are these overlaps, and what are some differences you would say? And also, do you know to what extent the Kerala model is inspired by the China model? So yeah, that question plus, what are the similarities and differences between? the two models?
See, Ashwin, I mean, to start with, one thing is very clear, which I think everyone can understand is Kerala is a country. Sorry, China is a country. Kerala is a small is a province in the union. I mean, in the country of India. I mean, like that's one out of 28 states. Kerala is one of the states in India. So that's important difference. I think it's important to understand. The reason I sort of say this to people to understand is because being a country, of course, you have the the whole power to take a call. But within I mean, being a state, there are not enough power, I would say, with regard, you can't take a lot of decisions. Of course, you can take, but sometimes you also need to go through Union of India, through Parliament. There are so many things which are attached. For example, there are budgetary allocations. I mean, sometimes the Union of India, the government of India has to sort of disburse there is something called GST, goods and sales tax. So the money collected needs to be distributed amongst the provinces, the states, and the government of India, the central government. So sometimes the disbursement takes a call because, and if they delay it, even strategically to suffocate the opposition, which is in power in those provinces, it can have serious impact on the different welfare schemes they run, right? So having said that, that's very important aspect to understand. When you say that, do you think that China, I mean, has influence, or Kerala got some influence from China? Definitely. I mean, when I say this, not in terms of, I mean, any practice. I think uh, people in Kerala, people in China are quite clever, quite matured to look at different things and to take examples from there, and then to inculcate in their own schemes and to how to deal with it. As I said, of course, I'm pretty sure the communist or the left-wing government in Kerala must have looked at the model, because it came 3 years back. They must have looked, they must have identified, can we do, is it possible to do it this way? They must have thought, no. That's why we see there is a lot of differences too, right? For example, I mean, what was the common architecture? Having said that, I'll come to now more finer points. So the what do you see the common architecture? I mean, why they feel similar? So deprivation first framing, right? That was the first framing in both the governments, China and I mean, with the Chinese government, and then you see with the Kerala government, you see their first point was deprivation, okay, and not the scheme first. I mean, China's two assurances, three guarantees: assured food, clothing, guarantee to education, healthcare, safe housing, maps closely onto Kerala's four non-negotiables, right? Food, income, shelter, healthcare. So that's like, so both starts from what? Missing, what is, who is missing, what is missing in the household, and then back solved through the state, right? Then named accountability at the smallest unit. China used household files with a responsible cadre assigned. Kerala used household micro plans with a responsible ward committee. Uh, of course, local self-government initiative institutions member plus Kudumshri link. In both, a specific person team owns each family. Families exit from deprivation. It helps them to exit from the deprivation. Then the time bound mechanism is very important. And so China set a very hard deadline. And that's why what you were talking about, 800 million people, that's very important. Till the time you have a time bound thing, because announcement, okay, we'll do this. God knows how much time you're going to take. But when you say time bound, by within 5 years, within 2 years, within this whatever the cycle is, that is very important, and one needs to understand. So this time bound manner in which these schemes and these initiatives were talked about. So for example, what was China's hard national deadline? 2020, right? End of 2020. What is Kerala's timeline is next year by 1st January we have to do it. 2026. So state. So these are, I think, very important thing. Then comes I would talk about the different differences. Uh, China, I would say, relied more on their cadres. 3 million cadres were put into this. Okay, it's very important. So it sometimes it looks like top-down party state cadre system, but imagine the connect which they have, one within their party organizations and with the society at large, with the masses. So this vertical lines of authority, performance appraisals tied to poverty targets. Okay, that was important. Kerala, I would say, relied more on it will look more as bottom-up decentralization because it depended on local self-government, institutions, and then on Kudumshri, which is again a federated women's network, and yeah, authority and budgets were embedded locally into since the 1990s. So this is what I would say is the major difference which I see. Yeah, there are certain, I think, a little bit more, which was like use of industrial employment, quite heavy use of industrial employment, I would say, relocation, e-commerce, agriculture, and targeted subsidies. These were also, I think, were important aspects. Uh, Kerala was care and services. It was focused more on care and services. It is on Manrega, local procurement, micro enterprises through Kudumshri and or primary health and social protection. So yeah, so these are the, I would say, very important aspects. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, and last question here. You know, the Kerala development model more broadly, not just the EPEP, the Extreme Poverty Eradication Program, but the Kerala development model more broadly over the past decades has set an example for how the state itself is deployed in development. That's one of the important conclusions from studying Kerala and also, with China. Different cases, different extents, but, still very much using the state. And, the question I'm coming to is premised on, since, the 70s, the 90s, the neoliberal era, there's really been this dogma, the Washington consensus of, essentially propaganda sold to the global South that, you should not, use your state in development. It's inefficient. Let the market play its role, and that is efficiency, and then you get development through that. And it's not just ideology, right? It's also imposed, right? Through the IMF, through the World Bank, conditions on loans means you have to chip away at your state capacity and your state-led development policies. So there's a real punishment, for the global South in using their states to develop as well. So in general, there's this environment of yeah, since the 90s onwards of not using the state to develop. And obviously that's very much related to the fact that the state can help you develop, right? Um, so, my question here is what lessons can be drawn by, left movements around the world now, and particularly in the global South from left movements and also other global South states. What lessons can be drawn from the Kerala model here?
See, Ashwin, it's very important. Any left or progressive government has a duty. Okay, they are duty bound to raise the living standards, advance the productive forces, technology sector, so that the quality of life improves overall, right? And Kerala shows how to make the that statement I mean makes it as an instrument of social, I mean state as an instrument of social transformation. That's very important. Uh, Not merely by slogans, remember, but by, I would say, wiring, participation, uh, women's power, primary health, and of course eradication by name wise into the machinery of government. So these are very important, right? Any left progressive forces have to do that. Of course, as you said, that I mean, many forces which are against you. Let's talk about people on systems on the other side, especially led by the global north. They don't want to allow. We recently saw the the bombing of Iran by US, right? I mean, despite their saying that we are not interested in creating a bomb, but out of fear, of course, they want to uh, create that to improve their, let's say, they want to improve their electricity system. They want to use it for something else, but not for bombs. But the global north that is not ready to listen to the Iranian regime, right? In the similar way, but if they want, no one can question them. They can do anything. So this is I just cited you one example, which I'm pretty sure is in the consciousness of a lot of people because it's a recent thing. In the similar way, history has showed. I mean, whenever there have been left progressive governments, uh, even center left governments, who which tried to sort of do certain or bring in some policy change with regard to let's say for improving productive forces, to bring in industrial policy, till the time it is aligned with the global north and the organizations which sort of perpetuate imperialism, they are fine. If it doesn't, then it's a problem. Then they come and bomb you, or they put sanctions on you, and so we know, for example, Venezuela, what's happening there. I mean, Trump is ready to wage a war against them. But I don't want to diverge from these things. I just want to come to Kerala. So this is important, right? So when I say this is, so there are few principles I think which is very important. See, participation must control budget. Just meeting is or announcing welfare schemes is not going to help. You have to have a large share of planned funds, not one-time grant to local bodies, almost 30-40%, because majority of the population is dependent on the local self-governments, right? So sometimes when you don't give them enough financial power, enough budget to carry on their projects and work, you sort of restrict. Then of course, who is going to, who is going to get that beating? Who is not going to get benefited? It's the population of the state, naturally. And that should be legally, I would say, made, but not legally, but that should be like, should be done on the, let ward or gram sabha level, I would say. If there is no budget, no money, there is no power. Let's face it. I mean, to make a drain, to make a road, to construct a road, you need budget. You need financial power. You need something. Till the time you have that, it's it's, it's not going to happen. We'll see the same system which we see in the global south, right? Then there needs to be target. You need to target deprivations and not just income lines. Income is not the, all this multi-dimensional poverty index has showed, right, that just one aspect is not enough to sort of help the people to come out of poverty. It's multi-dimensional. You yourself are saying it. So you have to target those deprivations and not just income lines. Use simple universal household checklist, as Kerala's for food, income, shelter, healthcare. So these are important. I think also then comes, which makes it very important, is make health the front line of development. So the primary care, the chronic disease management, the disability aid. Okay, these are very, I think, I would say, very important as anti-poverty tools, with doorstep drives and care coordinators. So one needs to fall back on this after their first visit. Then take the states and institutions should sort of try to, of course, even they have. they need to build strong women's federations into the state. Uh, they need to do that. I think it's important to sort of, it should not only be seen as again as an income thing or to improve their lives, but if you merge them with different aspects, these are very important, I would say, bodies to for so many tasks which I already talked about. For example, identification of paperwork, livelihoods, monitoring, and yeah. So these are again, what else? Then yeah, then turning redistribution into growth, man. I mean, de-risk households to unleash work and enterprise. Uh, I mean, when food, housing, healthcare are secured, people can search for better jobs, take credit, get that confidence, maintain micro enterprises. That stability is growth. That stability is growth policy, I would say. Then what else? MSME support, right? Use local procurement, MSME support, producer collectives. I mean, these are care economy jobs. These are, I think, also very important. One needs to do this. I mean, uh, yeah. Also, for example, Ashwin, one thing I think I should have talked more about it. See, sometimes what happens today, what is Kerala doing, which is very different for that matter? The what is that called? KFON. Yeah, KFON, right? So that Kerala fiber optic network, that's very important. What does it do? It's very important to understand. I mean, we all know a lot of things are getting. There is internet economy now, right? A lot of things are digitally there. So, I mean, a lot of this fiber networks, this data, that data, everything is bloody left to private players, right? So where does the state comes, and it opens tender to come do, I mean, put your wires, collect all the data. And so Kerala, for that matter, what as a state it has done, it is sort of investing in digital infrastructure, which is very, very important, I think, for any province, any even countries for that matter. It's important. Till the time you actually do, sorry, I forgot to mention that, but it's important. Why it's important? We all are dependent on internet now, right? We want digital infrastructure, we want I mean, digital sovereignty. But till the time you start investing in your own digital sovereign, I mean, infrastructure, how would you get to digital sovereignty? So that KFON is one thing where Kerala government is saying that we are going to lay over the cables. We are going to give free internet connections to young people, to the needy, and we are going to give data. We are going to charge. It's not going to be free. So these are important aspects. I think these are important aspects. These are important examples for even countries. Forget about states. I mean, we all know. Let's talk about digital sovereignty. Ashwin, tell me, how many countries have their own sort of digital infrastructure? Sorry to say this, apart from China in global north, which many people don't consider, but we have to, right? And some in, I would say, in Japan, major global south countries doesn't have. Sorry, Brazil, none. South Africa, none. India, very limited. We are still, I mean, today I was reading the news that we have unveiled 4G network, whatever towers. What? I mean, countries are going for 5G. I mean, 5G is also now older thing. It's going for 6G, 7G. We are talking about 4G, and I mean, I am like, what are you saying? So I don't want to get into that rant mode, but this is the reality, right? I'm saying these are important aspects. Till the time global south countries start developing their own, and start investing in their own infrastructure to sort of develop the mechanisms to fight the global north and to take on the challenges which they pose, it's going to be very hard. I mean, then I also remember, I mean, all of these things which we talked for like 1 hour or so, 1.5 hours so, it's all within a system. I'm not, none of us, none, you, not you, neither me. We talked about changing the system, right? We are talking even within, I mean, we are still talking about welfareist model, man. We are still talking about delivering the system. Forget about, people will criticize, oh, left government, they call themselves left, but they can't even sort of, I mean, why are they, I mean, not giving money to the people? Uh, Imagine the fight which the left has to fight today, delivering the basic amenities to the people. I'm talking about, I mean, how many states, how many countries in the, I mean, forget global south countries. Of course, they are attacked. In global north, how many countries they are able to give? So I'm just saying these are very important. I mean, these are important aspects to take care. And I think that is where Kerala is a very, I would say, it is a very interesting model. Something, I mean, a model which absolutely should be replicated. I mean, as many, I would say global north countries too. I mean, so many countries, we keep on giving the same examples to them. How many, I mean, the sort of work which, of course, Kerala has done, a lot of countries in the global north have not done that. So, I mean, I'm just saying, so these are very important things which they need to do instead of to build that infrastructure to sort of which can deliver services and I mean to your own people and have an accountability rather than just keep on playing the same loop, which is more like coming and giving bhashans and promising whatever which is never delivered. Yeah.
That was great, Atul. And I think that's a great note to to round off the podcast. Thank you so much again for your time and for participating and sharing your insights with us. Last thing I'll say is if you let the listeners know where they can find your work, where they can follow, keep up with Tricontinental. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Ashwin, and to all the listeners who are joining. It's a request. You can just Google Tricontinental Institute for Social Research, and you can take a look at all our work which we are involved into. We have different offices now. We have News Through America. We have from the Europe. We have offices in Africa, and myself and their other friends who are working in the Tricontinental Asia team, and we keep on producing materials from a different perspectives. When I say perspective, of course, different sectors and fields. So it's a request to all of you. Please go subscribe to us, follow us, and write your feedbacks. That's very important. Sometimes which we keep on producing materials and it seems, oh, people are reading, but sometimes it's important to get even your criticism. I think that's very important. Your feedbacks are important. You don't agree, it's okay. I mean, but send us, because that will help us to do more hard work in terms of, that's what our director keeps on talking about, the battle of ideas, the debates, discussions. So that's what we believe in, and we'll request all of you to please join. And thank you so much, Ashwin, for having me.
Yes, of course. And for the listeners, I will leave, especially Atul's article on People's Dispatch. I'll leave that linked in the description, and I'll leave the links to Tricontinental in the description as well. Thank you again, Atul.